anybody in the cause of purifying the religion and establishing the Tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, I want to finish over the next, the few moments that I have left, and I want to mention how, alhamdulillah, the scholars of our scholars in the modern era, they have continued these activities and have performed a tremendous service to us in our era. And I want to give some very, very quick examples to illustrate this. So, for example, Shaykh Hamoud At-Tuwaijiri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote a book, As-Sawa'iq Ash-Shadida ala Atba'i al-Hay'at al-Jadida. Right? So, Shaykh Hamoud At-Tuwaijiri, he wrote a book refuting the people of modern astronomy, the modern day astronomers. As we know, there are many creeds, many philosophies, many scientific theories and ideas in our time, just like there were in the time of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, just like there were in the time of the Salaf, right, when the Greek philosophy and Hindu philosophy and their sciences were imported into Islam. Likewise, in our time, there are so many things which are present, and our scholars, walhamdulillah, may Allah reward them tremendously, they have continued that work that was done by the Salaf, by Ibn Taymiyyah and other scholars. So Shaykh Hamoud At-Tuwaijiri, he refuted the modern astronomers who basically have nothing but conjectures and assumptions and presumptions, and he refuted them in this tremendous work, lengthy work, where he refuted all of their assumptions with the Quran and the Sunnah. So this is one example. A second example, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his 30s, he wrote a book refuting socialism, and called Al-Adilla fi Butlan al-Ishtirakiyya. And this socialism or this communism is one of the great trials and tribulations, not just in our time, in many times in history, because it is the way by which people enslave other people, right? And socialism is one of those tools or one of those means. So he wrote a tremendous book in his 30s, and this is going back 1380, so this would be roughly 60 years ago today, I believe, which would be around, if I'm not mistaken, around 1970, I believe, around somewhere in the 70s, I believe, or late 1960s. Roughly speaking, it's an estimation. So he wrote this and outlined evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah refuting this socialism. And I'll come back to that in a moment, inshallah ta'ala. Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, al-Adillatul Qawati' wal-Barahin fi ibtali usul al-mulhidin, a refutation of the atheists. Many evidences which he took themselves from the books of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, and some he added from himself in refutation of the atheists. Shaykh Ibn Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, refuting, speaking about communism and socialism, and destroying their arguments. Ash-Shanqiti rahimahullah ta'ala, in his tafsir, refuting the socialists and the communists and their slogans of justice in wealth, justice in ownership, and removing inequality and things of that nature. All of these things that we are hearing today, these slogans that we are hearing, where we want, there's wealth inequality, we have to remove it. There's social injustice, we have to remove it. All of these are well-known slogans of every deviant in history who wants to enslave people. Listen to what Shaykh Rabi' ibn Hadi, hafizahullah ta'ala, he said in one of his books. He says that we have witnessed from reality, وَلَقَدْ شَاهَدْنَا مِنَ الْوَاقِعِ وَمِنَ التَّارِيخِ الْإِبْرِ. We've heard throughout history, and we've seen, and we have lessons in history. أن كل صاحب فتنة وكل داع إلى ضلالة. Every person who is a person of fitna, every person who calls to misguidance, he wants to call by the slogan of al-adal wal-adala wal-insaf. right? He calls by the slogan of justice and equality and so on and so forth. And then he gives some examples from history. Abu al-Mukhtar bin Abi Ubaid al-Thaqafi, who revolted against the Khulafa, and Abi Muslim al-Khurasani, and likewise all of the he says, wal harakat al-Masoniyya, the Freemason movements and the communist movements and all these movements, everybody who intends evil, what do? They come and they start calling by the words of equality and justice and fairness and social justice, and this is how they present their misguidance to the people. So the point being that these scholars that we mentioned, they have written on these things. In the 20th century, they have pointed these things out in some detail. Likewise, we see, like in the modern era, there is the issue, all of these things are there to remove the rububiyyah of Allah Azza wa Jal, to erase the rububiyyah of Allah Azza wa Jal. Whether we are speaking about cosmology and all of the conjectures and things they have in their cosmology, the Big Bang and things like that, whether it is evolution, by which they are trying to strip the creation from having a creator, whether it is even in things like, even such things, for example, in the ideas about what motivates human actions. We know, for example, that Allah Azza wa Jal put the fitrah into every person, every child. And this fitrah, its meaning is to be inclined to the truth and to choose what is beneficial and to be disinclined away from falsehood and to leave what is harmful. This is the fitrah. This is the basis of human actions, right? This is what we know from our religion. However, the people of kufr and shirk and ilhad, what they do, like for example in the philosophy of Freud and Freudianism, which is a fake science and a pseudoscience, they basically twist and alter the creation of Allah, and they say that the real thing which drives and motivates behavior is sexual frustration. Sexual frustration. And so they pervert and distort the realities of Allah's creation. And built upon these perversions and distortions, they then, bring philosophies and ideas and cultures which lead to destruction and ruin, right? Likewise, you have all of these environmentalist, earth worship type of people who want to worship the earth, the Gaia religion, the Gaia religion. If you look that up, you'll see it is a religion, and they believe that mankind is a parasite and mankind is destroying the earth, and so therefore we have to save the earth, and we have to. All of these philosophies are being used in order to enslave people, whereas the truth is that Allah Azza wa Jal made mankind, the khulafa, He made them vicegerents upon the earth. He made the earth for them. He made the animals for them. He made the vegetation for them. And obviously they have to use it responsibly, but there is an actual religion and a philosophy. And built upon that is the modern day environmentalism, climate change, global warming, all of this thing. What they really intend by that is to reverse the realities and to basically steal from mankind their riches, to enslave them, and so on and so forth. All of these are philosophical things which they are brainwashing our children with. And so we have to look at them with care and with detail. There are elements of truth in there, but those elements of truth are used in order to deceive the people and to conceal the true intentions and the true agendas and the true motivations. So all of this is coming, this earth worship and environmentalist religion, and they are drawing the children, our children, into these ideas in the school by brainwashing them with these ideas. And all of this is tied to the Baha'i religion, the religion of the Baha'is, which is a universal religion that they want to promote to everybody. Likewise, we have the issue of gender and sexuality and trying to remove the differences between male and female. Likewise, you have all of these social justice movements. They want equality in wealth, equality between men and women, equality in terms of race. All of this sounds good. And of course, there are elements of truth in these things because there are inequalities. But what they really intend by this is to change and alter the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. They want to standardize everybody. There's no difference between a man and a woman. There's no difference between the rich and the poor. All of them should have the same level of wealth. We have to confiscate wealth and share it between everybody so everybody is exactly the same as everybody else. Right? This is the goal of socialism and communism. And so what they do is all of these social justice movements that you find today, such as Black Lives Matter, such as, the earth worship religion, environmentalism, these are things that they are drawing children into these ideas, the end result of which is undermining the rububiyyah of Allah Azza wa Jal. And I will give you just one quick example from the speech of Shaykh Ash-Shanqiti rahimahullah ta'ala. He mentions when he's commenting upon a verse in the Quran, in which Allah Azza wa Jal, he says how نحن قسمنا بينهم معيشتهم في الحياة الدنيا ورفعنا بعضهم فوق بعض درجات ليتخذ بعضهم بعضا سخريا. In this verse, Allah Azza wa Jal, he says that he is the one who has divided everyone's livelihood in the life of this world. And he's raised some people over other people in degrees and levels, so that some of them can use others as a service. So in other words, it is Allah Azza wa Jal who is the one who's made the rich person, the poor person, the weak person, the strong person. Right? He's made and he's created all of these differences in mankind. Why? So that the issues of trade and service and these kind of things can then take place between them. And Shaykh Ash-Shanqiti gives an example. He says, look, in Allah's creation, you have the very strong man in terms of his body, but he doesn't have much wealth. Then you have the weak person in terms of body, but he has a tremendous amount of wealth. He himself can't do the work. Right? Allah has created these situations. So then the weak person who is not strong in body, he can use his wealth to give to the strong person in his body who needs the wealth. So this interdependence and need is created by Allah. This is why there is the rich and the poor and the weak and the strong. And all of these disparities in the creation, they are created by Allah for a wisdom to allow these meanings and these functions to arise and to exist. Right. And then by mentioning this, he refutes the socialists and the communists. And, we hear these terms, socialism, communism, and we think, they are just 20th century. But this is not true, because these are being introduced in new ways and in disguised ways that we may not really see through. Things such as the whole climate change and global warming and carbon credits and sustainable development and equality and justice for all and, no exclusion for anybody. And right, all of this is what they are speaking of. It's the same thing, right? And so what I'm saying here is that our scholars, may Allah reward them tremendously, in their speech and in their works and in their writings, they have pointed these things out to us already. For us to then to be aware and to be alert to these kind of things that are taking place and taking shape around us, so that we can protect our children from these ideas which on the surface they seem to be nice and calling for justice and equity, and like Shaykh Rabi said, al-insaf wal-adal wal-adala wal-musawat wal-ikha, friendship and equality and so on and so forth. But really what we are seeing, without even realizing it, it's just like shirk. Shirk happens over many, many centuries. It starts off with exaggeration in the righteous people, and step by step, lo and behold, 3 centuries later, you see people are worshipping graves. It didn't happen after a week or a month. It happened after centuries or maybe decades, right? Because the guard is down. We don't know what's taking place. In a similar way with these kind of ideas, cosmology, evolution, Freudianism, earth worship, gender, social justice movements, using things like racism, wealth inequality. These ideas are being pushed, but the end goal, the outcome of all of this is to enslave you so that you are easier to then, command and prohibit. So we need to be careful about these things and about these philosophies and these ideas which are being taught. Behind them there are agendas, and it is leading to something. It would be naive for a person to think that this is just, all of it is just good, and there are things behind it, and we ought to take the lessons of history, as Shaykh Rabi has rightly pointed out here, that we've witnessed from history. وَلَقَدْ شَاهَدْنَا مِنَ الْوَاقِعِ وَمِنَ التَّارِيخِ الْعِبَرِ لَا مُعْتَبَرْ وَلَا مُتَّعِذْ إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبِّكَ. So he basically saying, we ourselves have learned from the actual reality and from history many lessons. However, no one is taking a lesson. No one is taking an admonition except those upon whom Allah has placed His mercy. So this is a warning from Shaykh Rabi' that we need to be careful about these deceptive slogans which are being raised of, equality and justice and all these things. Really what's behind them is something that we may not really realize at the beginning, and the outcome of it is truly, truly evil. So all these things in our time, we are surrounded by them, as I said, in all these different fields, and it is something that we have to be aware of. And alhamdulillah, I gave a few examples of some of our scholars, Shaykh Hamoud al-Tuwaijiri, Ibn Taymiyyah, As-Sa'di,